This is for my anatomy and physiology class. Here I'm going to run through most of the exercises I do for my full body split that I usually do. This will involve a total of 6 exercises. I know it's one more than 5, but hopefully it'll give me extra points. But seriously, I'll do a rundown of the muscles used, followed by the joints, the classification of the joint movement, followed by the bones involved, and ending with the nerve step. Just a disclaimer, the movement shown won't be perfect. I won't claim to be the form and technique officer, but it is a good example of how to perform the movements. So the first one here is just a standing calf raise done with a Smith machine. There's no dedicated calf raise machine here at this gym, so I just use the Smith machine. It gets the job done. You'll notice I have my toes elevated, as this allows for a better stretch on the muscle, which has been shown to increase strength and hypertrophy, which is of course the goal here. Reference on, that's a note for me. Whoops. Onto the joints, you'll see that most of the stress is on a plantar flexion. You could make the case where the other joint involved is a slight flexion of the knee, but I wore sweats, so you wouldn't know that, would you? The structural and functional classification of the talocrural joint, or the ankle joint, is a synovial hinge joint due to the hinge-like activity. Essentially, it's going up and down in one plane. The bones involved are the tibia, fibula, and the talus, which is where the bones articulate from. The next exercise is specifically an incline dumbbell press. Using the adjustable bench is a must as far as angles go. I would go with a 3 or 4. Here they are numbered, so that makes it easier to adjust. The reason I would use a 3 or 4 is that anything lower, you tend to get more sternal head of the pectoralis major, and anything higher, you tend to target more anterior delts. So 3 is where I tend to put it. Another cool tidbit is that some research has shown that incline press of any kind targets the whole chest, but emphasizes the clavicular head more, so just incline and any routine seems to do the trick. As mentioned earlier, the pectoralis major is the primary agonist here. However, the anterior delts are getting stimulated as well as the triceps, albeit not to the same degree. The joints used are the ones at the elbow as well as the shoulder. They are respectively the humeral ulnar, or the elbow joint, as well as the glenohumeral joint, or otherwise known as the shoulder. Both of these are synovial, however, the elbow is a hinge joint and the shoulder is a ball and socket joint. As far as the movement goes, you are seeing a lot of it. Informative, I know. For starters, at the start of the movement, after kneeing the dumbbell onto my body, you have flexion at the top of the movement, you have an extension at the bottom of the movement, there is some slight adduction at the bottom, followed by adduction towards the top. I think I might be overdoing it a little bit with the movement type. And that's just the shoulder, mind you. Next is the elbow, extension and flexion. And that's primarily it. This next exercise is a modified version of a bicep curl. This variant still involves the bench, however, the incline is at a 2. You could go lower, but I feel comfortable with the 2 as of now. This one is pretty simple. It uses the biceps brachii, both heads to be specific, long and short. The forearm muscles at play here are the ones used for gripping. I'm trying to resist any flexion or extension within the wrist to try and maximize my bicep activation without injuring my wrists in the process. As you can see, my baby wrists are holding on for dear life. The gripping muscles are as follows: extensor digitorum, flexor digitorum profundus, flexor pollicis longus, extensor carpi radialis longus, and flexor digitorum superficialis. I can't believe I nailed that. Finally, for rotation of the arm, specifically supination, is the supinator. The joints involved are the humeral ulnar joint, which is a synovial hinge joint, the humeral radial joint, which is a synovial ball and socket joint, albeit limited. Next is the grippies. They are all hinges. Nothing too exciting there. The movement for the phalanges is all flexion, pretty straightforward, and the elbow is no different, as you can see here. Oh, dude, what is your problem? You should get that looked at. That isn't right, man. That's just gross. So yeah, both my elbows, on top of regular extension and flexion, also hyperextend. Believe it or not, this does not hurt, but I know in the long run I should not abuse my flexibility, or it will abuse me. The bones are the humerus, the ulna, as well as the metacarpals and the phalanges. This next exercise is called a lat pull down. It's one of those exercises everyone does. Especially for the first time, just kind of looking around the gym, not really knowing what to do. Personally, I would have preferred a pull-up, but I was running out of time. I didn't really have a good angle either. Pretty straightforward. The main mover is the latissimus dorsi, however the trapezius muscle, as well as the rear delts and the rhomboids play some role, but not too much. The goal here is to think like a lever, kind of bend your elbows in like you're trying to bend the bar in front of you, And then, pretty much just like that. You want to pull to about your chin or to your manubrium. The joints used here are the same ones for the incline dumbbell press, +1. The only real difference, other than the muscles, is gravity and the movement type, and an extra bone in joint. The glenohumeral joint, which we know is a synovial ball and socket joint, as well as the humeroradial joint, which is a synovial hinge joint. The acromioclavicular joint is a plain joint that glides over the other bone, in this case the clavicle. It aids in retraction, which helps us get the weight down, as shown here. The shoulder is extending behind us at the bottom of the movement, flexing at the top. The elbow is also following suit. The bones involved are the humerus, the scapula, and the ulna, and the radius. This next one is my favorite. This is the leg press. It targets most of the lower limb muscles, but the one I'm focusing on is all the vastus muscles, aka the quadriceps. The vastus lateralis, vastus medius, vastus intermedius, and finally, the rectus femoris. Just for future reference, the rectus femoris is hit better during leg extension, but it does get some activation here. Together they make up the knee. Also, the acetobulofemoral joint is just a synovial ball and socket joint. The knee is also a synovial joint, but it's a modified hinge joint. The main moving parts here are the extension and the flexion at the knee. That's pretty much it. Notice how I let my knees drive into my body and then extend the leg that helps keep the tension on my quads, rather than on my muscles to join in. The main bones used are the femur, tibia, and fibula. Finally, the bonus exercise, leg raises. Yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. You raise the legs. It's supposed to help hit the rectus abdominis, specifically the lower part, but it's kind of a hit or miss and ends up using the hip flexors instead. That's why you see me lean forward with my chest forward and not bend my knee as much. It takes that weight off of them and helps me focus on hitting the abdominals better. The two major joints used are the acetobulofemoral joint, which is a synovial ball and socket, as well as the zygapophyseal? Zygapophyseal. What? As well as the zygapophyseal joint, which is a cartilaginous symphysis joint. The hip is extending and flexing, and so is the spine. The bones involved are the femur, the hip bones, which involve the ilium, pubic, and ischial bones, as well as the vertebrae of the spine. Finally, onto the nerve stuff. Something you did not see throughout the video was some hesitation on my lifts. This weight, at least to where I'm at, is heavy. It takes a moment for me to almost hype myself up. To start the lift, especially with the leg press and the incline dumbbell press. Another thing to note is warming up, which is shown to aid your CNS and recruiting more fibers. I feel the dumbbell's weight on my thighs, or I remember how tired I get after doing a set of leg press. All of this starts a chain reaction, not only in my mind, but also in my body. I'm getting amped up. My CNS is telling my muscles to recruit more fibers. My peripheral nervous system is alerted, and my sympathetic nervous system is also alerted. It's fight or flight. Lactic acid is built up. Acetylcholine is flooding my muscles. Adrenaline is pumping, and the muscles are screaming. I can't imagine my brain is doing much except just sheer dopamine and serotonin as I complete the lift. This concludes the video. Also, I 100% did not procrastinate until Friday night. Totally. Alright, bye. I'm gonna also kind of add something at the end here. Okay, never mind. I forgot.